You know, sometimes life doesn't break you all at once. It does it quietly. A little silence here, a little distance there, and before you realize it, you're alone at the dinner table, staring at the empty chair across from you, wondering when the person you loved stopped loving you back. That was me. I had been married for 16 years. 16 years of mornings together, kids to school, burnt toast, laughter, fights, and making up. I thought we were solid. Not perfect, but solid. Until one day, he started smiling at his phone more than at me. At first, I brushed it off. You know how we women are. We notice everything, but we still try to explain it away. Oh, he's just tired. Oh, it's just work. Oh, maybe I'm overthinking. But I wasn't overthinking. I was right. One night he came home late. Again. I had kept his dinner warm. The kids were asleep. He didn't even look at me when he said, "I don't think this is working anymore." Just like that. No fight. No warning. Those words cracked the world open. I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "There's someone else." You know that sound the heart makes when it breaks? It's silence. A silence so heavy, it feels like thunder in your chest. He left that night. He packed a small bag. Just clothes and his phone charger. Didn't even take our wedding photo. The man who once swore he'd die for me couldn't even look back when he closed the door. I sat on the floor till sunrise. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just sat there, feeling my hands tremble like I was trying to hold on to something invisible. Days turned into weeks. The bed felt too big. The kitchen too quiet. I kept listening for his footsteps out of habit. Even the washing machine reminded me of him because his shirt wasn't in it anymore. People said, "You're strong. You'll get through this." I smiled politely, but strength was the last thing I felt. I felt empty. The hardest part wasn't that he left. It was that he left for her. She was younger, beautiful, sure, but she had that shine, the kind you only have before life teaches you what love actually means. She looked at him the way I used to. I couldn't hate her, even when I wanted to, because I knew. Someday she'd know this pain too. I tried to keep my dignity. I didn't chase him, didn't call or beg. I told my kids, "Daddy needs time," even though deep inside I knew Daddy wasn't coming back. Every night I'd scroll through their pictures together. New restaurants, trips, smiles that used to be mine, and I'd whisper to myself, "He looks happy. Maybe that's enough." But it wasn't enough, not for me. I lost weight, stopped sleeping, stopped singing in the kitchen. I even forgot my own birthday until my daughter said, "Mom, can we at least get you a cake?" And I realized life had gone on for everyone but me. Then something inside me snapped, not from anger, but from clarity. I looked in the mirror one morning and said, "He took my love. He doesn't get to take my life." I started walking in the mornings, just me and the sunrise. Some days I'd cry halfway through, some days I'd smile, but I kept going. I went back to work, made new friends, started cooking again, not for him, not even for the kids, but for me. That's when I began to heal, not because I forgot him, but because I remembered myself. A whole year passed. I hadn't seen him. Not a text, not a call, nothing. Until one night, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. When I did, a soft, broken voice said, "Auntie, please." "It's me. Can we talk?" It was her, the woman he left me for. I froze. I thought maybe I was dreaming. She said my name again, trembling. "I know you hate me, but please don't hang up. It's about him." My heart pounded. "What about him?" I asked. There was silence on the line. Then she whispered, "He's dying. I didn't move for a full minute. Her words kept echoing in my mind. He's dying? It felt like time froze. I asked, "What do you mean he's dying?" Her voice cracked. "He had an accident. The doctors say he lost a lot of blood. They need consent for surgery. And I don't know what to do. Please, you're still listed as his emergency contact. Imagine that. After everything she took from me, she needed me." My hand was shaking so bad, I almost dropped the phone. Part of me wanted to scream, "You did this. You deal with it." But another part, the part that still remembered the man who once held my hand through every storm, whispered, "Go." I didn't even change clothes. I grabbed my car keys and drove through the rain like a woman possessed. The drive felt endless. Every red light, every drop of rain on the windshield, every song on the radio, all of it was pulling me back through memories. His laugh, his smell, the way he used to hold my face and say, "You're my home." And now I was driving to a hospital to maybe say goodbye to the same man who walked away without looking back. When I reached the hospital, it was almost midnight. The hall smelled of antiseptic and fear. And there she was, sitting in the waiting area, wearing a hoodie, mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked nothing like the confident woman from those Instagram photos. She looked small, broken, terrified. When she saw me, she stood up fast, like she wasn't sure if she should run to me or run away. "Thank you for coming," she said. I just stared at her. No words. Then she whispered, "He keeps calling your name. Even in pain. He keeps saying your name." Something in me twisted. It wasn't pride. It wasn't revenge. It was sorrow. The kind that doesn't scream. It just sinks into your bones. They let me see him. He was pale. Tubes in his arms. Bandages everywhere. The man who used to seem invincible now looked fragile, like a child lost in a storm. I stood there for a while, then sat beside him. His hand was cold. When I touched it, his eyes flickered open, just a little. He whispered, "You came," I wanted to say. Of course I came, but the words wouldn't come out, because the truth was, I didn't know why I came. Was it love? Pity? Duty? Habit? Maybe all of them. I just sat there, listening to the machines beep. Each beep felt like a second chance. A heartbeat trying to find its rhythm again. She came in quietly, stood behind me, didn't say anything for a while. Then she said, "I'm so sorry. For everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, I can't lose him." Her words hit me in a strange way. She wasn't proud anymore. The arrogance, the glow, the Instagram perfect life, all gone. Just fear and guilt. And for a moment, I saw myself in her. The woman who once begged life not to take him from me. I turned to her and said, "I'll do what I can. For him. And for my children." She nodded, crying. "Thank you, Auntie." Funny, isn't it? The same woman who once stole my husband now calling me Auntie. Life has its own sense of humor. The next 48 hours were chaos. Doctors, forms, bills, decisions. She was falling apart, and I somehow became the calm one. Maybe that's what time does. It toughens you in ways heartbreak never could. I called the kids, didn't tell them everything, just that their father was hurt, and we should pray. They cried quietly. They still loved him. Kids always do. At dawn, I sat in the hospital corridor with a cup of vending machine coffee. It tasted like cardboard, but I didn't care. That's when I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I thought I would be, that I'd see him weak and feel justice, but I didn't. All I felt was peace, the kind that comes when you finally stop fighting with ghosts. When the surgery ended, the doctor said he'd make it, barely, but he'd live. Relief hit us like a wave. She collapsed on the floor crying. and I just stood there, holding the wall, whispering, "Thank you." When I went back into his room, he was asleep. The rise and fall of his chest was the most beautiful sound I'd heard in a long time. I leaned close and said, "You're lucky, you know. Not because you survived, but because two women who had every reason to hate each other chose to pray for you instead." He didn't hear me, but maybe, on some level he did. That night, I didn't go home. I sat in the hallway outside his room, wrapped in a blanket, watching nurses walk past. She came and sat next to me. We didn't talk for a while. Then she said, "He always told me you were kind." I didn't believe him. Now I see it. I smiled weakly. "Kindness isn't weakness," I said. "It's the only way to stay human." She nodded, crying again, and for the first time, I didn't see her as the woman who took my husband. I saw her as a scared young woman who made a terrible mistake and now carried its weight. That's when something shifted in me. I realized forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a process. Sometimes it starts not when someone says sorry, but when you stop needing revenge. I didn't forgive her that night, but I started walking toward it. Step by step, voice softens, fades to emotional whisper. As dawn broke through the hospital window, I looked at him sleeping and thought, maybe this was how it had to happen. Maybe losing him was how I found myself. You'd think saving someone's life would make you feel heroic, but it doesn't. It makes you feel hollow. I watched him lie there for days, in and out of sleep, machines breathing for him, his face pale, his hand bruised from all the needles. I'd sit by his bed and just watch the rise and fall of his chest, proof he was still here, still human. Sometimes I'd talk to him softly. "You really made a mess this time, didn't you?" Or, "I hope this pain teaches you something." He never answered, but I kept talking. Maybe for him, maybe for me. The young woman, his new wife. She rarely left his side either, but she kept her distance from me. Every time our eyes met, she looked away. I could tell she was drowning in guilt, and honestly, that guilt was heavier than any revenge I could have planned. One morning, she walked up to me and said, "He used to talk about you all the time." I froze. "What do you mean?" "He'd say you were the only person who ever truly understood him. That no one could love him the way you did." I laughed, not out of joy, but disbelief. "If that's true, then why did he leave?" She looked down. "Because he thought he didn't deserve you." Those words stayed with me for days. You know, sometimes people destroy what they love the most. Not because they want to, but because they're afraid of not being enough for it. He always had that fear. He never said it directly, but I saw it in how he avoided eye contact when life got hard. He wanted to be admired, not seen. And I saw everything. That scared him. Still, hearing it from her hit differently. A week later, the doctor said he was improving. They even moved him to a regular room. I brought soup, magazines, small things. Not as a wife, but as someone who still cared about a man she once built a home with. The first time he sat up and looked at me properly, he smiled weakly. "You still make that chicken soup?" I said. "Don't get used to it." We both laughed, awkwardly. It felt strange, hearing that sound between us again. Like finding an old song on the radio you once loved but can't sing along to anymore. He was quiet for a while. Then he said, "I thought you'd never forgive me." I looked at him and said honestly, "I haven't. Not completely." He nodded, tears filling his eyes. "You should hate me." "I did," I said, "for a long time. Then I realized hate doesn't keep you warm at night." He smiled sadly. "You've always been the better one." "No," I said, "just the one who learned her lessons sooner." We talked for hours that day about the kids, about life, about the mistakes that can't be undone but can still be understood. He told me he'd been unhappy long before he left, not because of me, but because of himself. He said, I kept chasing youth, excitement, attention, because I couldn't face getting older, slower, ordinary. I said, you weren't ordinary. You were just scared of being human. He nodded, crying, and for the first time in years, I saw the man I once loved, not the stranger who broke me, but the boy who once promised me forever. His new wife stood by the door, watching. When I saw her, I stopped talking. She wiped her eyes and said, I'm sorry for interrupting. I didn't realize he still had so much to say to you. I turned to her gently. Don't worry. This is just closure, something we both needed. But deep down, I knew. Closure doesn't happen in one conversation. It happens in 1,000 quiet moments after. That night, as I left the hospital, she followed me outside. Her voice trembled when she said, You must hate me. I said, I did, but hate's heavy, and I've carried it long enough. She started crying again. I thought he'd make me happy. I thought love could start from someone else's pain. I was wrong. I nodded. We all learn that lesson eventually. Then she looked me right in the eyes and said, If he ever wakes up one day and realizes who you really are, I'll understand if you take him back. I froze, because that was the one thing I hadn't even allowed myself to think about. Would I? Could I? After everything? I didn't answer her, because I didn't know. That night I went home and sat on my porch with a cup of tea. The city was quiet, the sky cloudy. I thought about how life has this strange rhythm. It breaks you, then hands you the pieces back and asks, Now what will you do with them? And in that silence, I realized something important. Forgiving someone doesn't mean you want them back. Sometimes it just means you're ready to stop bleeding. I had stopped bleeding. I had healed. And if he ever came back, I wasn't sure I could open that door again, not because I hated him, but because I had learned to love myself more than the idea of us. Still, when I closed my eyes that night, I saw his face. Weak, sorry, human. And I whispered into the dark, I hope you live long enough to make things right, even if it's not with me. He recovered faster than the doctors expected. They said it was his will to live, but I think it was something deeper. A second chance life had decided to give him. A month after he was discharged, he asked to see me. Just me. I hesitated. Part of me was curious, another part terrified. After all, what do you say to the man who broke you, and then looked to you to save his life? When I walked into his living room, he stood up slowly. He looked thinner, older. There were lines on his face I had never seen before. He smiled weakly and said, You came. Again I said, You're lucky I still answer the phone. He chuckled, a soft, tired laugh. Then his eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to begin saying sorry, I told him. Then don't begin. Just live better. He shook his head. You always make it sound so simple. That's because life is simple, I said. We're the ones who make it complicated. He sat down and said, She left. I blinked. What? After the hospital. She couldn't handle it. She said the guilt was killing her. She packed up and went to her mother's. I don't blame her. I sighed. Life doesn't give discounts for mistakes. We all pay full price. He smiled sadly. And what about you? What price did you pay? I looked him straight in the eyes. Losing you was expensive, but I got my peace in return. He wiped his face and said, You were my home. I destroyed it with my own hands. I didn't answer, because sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Then he asked, "Can I ever make it right?" I said, "You can't change what you broke, but you can stop breaking yourself over it." We sat there for a long time. No shouting, no blame. Just two people sitting in the ruins of what once was, finally at peace with the wreckage. Before I left, he took my hand. "Thank you," he said, "for saving my life twice. Once when we met, and once at the hospital, I smiled. Don't thank me. Just don't waste the life you've got left." Then I walked away, not out of anger, but freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking away from him. I was walking toward myself. Months passed. He started volunteering at a rehab center, helping accident victims. He called sometimes to ask about the kids. I kept it polite, kind, but distant. One evening, he sent a text. It said, "I'm trying to become the man you once believed I was." I stared at that message for a while, then replied, "That's all you ever needed to be." And that was it. No grand reunion, no romantic ending, just quiet closure. You know, people always ask me, if you could go back, would you change anything? And I always say, no, because if I hadn't lost him, I'd never have found myself. If he hadn't betrayed me, I wouldn't have learned what forgiveness truly means. And if she hadn't begged me that night, maybe none of us would have survived the weight of our choices. Forgiveness doesn't make you weak. It makes you unstoppable. It means you refuse to let pain turn you bitter. It means you can walk through fire and still come out holding light. So, to anyone watching this who's been left, betrayed, or forgotten, please listen. You don't have to stay broken to prove you loved deeply. You can love, lose, and still rise. If I can, you can too. He left me for a younger woman. A year later, she begged me to save his life, and in doing so, I saved mine. Did you like the story, my dear ones? Tell me, which city are you listening from today? I love seeing where all my family around the world is watching from. Let's meet down in the comments. I read every single one of them. And if this story touched your heart, you can send a super thanks to help me keep bringing more stories just like this one. Thank you for your love and support. You're the reason I keep sharing these stories. I can't wait to see your comments below. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong,